The broadcast is now starting. All attendees are in listen-only mode.
Okay, so Richard, will you go ahead and introduce the session and then I'll take over?
Yeah, sure. Good afternoon, everyone. Welcome to the webinar hosted by Novell and SEP. My name is Richard Yeager, and I'm the marketing manager for SEP. And today I'm joined by several people. On the Novell side, we have Lothar Wegner and Madden, who will be discussing the new Novell OES, as well as some other exciting features with Filer and IPrint. On the SEP side, we're joined by Lanai Bain and James Delmonico, who will show you how one solution can back up your entire Novell enterprise. And after all that, we're going to jump into a live demo and show you exactly how our backup products works within their Novell environments. And there will also be a Q&A at the end of the session, so please feel free to ask questions along the way in the box on the bottom right-hand side of your screen. If we don't have time to get around to your question, we'll be sure to follow up with you offline, so please don't hesitate to use that box. And without further ado, let's kick it off to Lothar and Madden to get started.
Okay, good morning, good afternoon, everyone. Today we'll just have a brief look at what's cooking and what's the upcoming releases in OES, Filer, and iPrint. I'm Madan, the Senior Product Manager over OES and iPrint. I'm joined by Lothar Wegner, who is a Senior Technology Specialist. So, considering the limited time, this is the agenda on the Novell side of things. We'll do a brief look into what's cooking with OES 2015, the next major update to OES. And we'll look at the features that are coming in Filer 1.1 and then iPrint 1.1. These two are set to go out in the next couple of weeks. So let's jump right into OES 2015. That's the official name for the next release of OES. The key features that we are targeting with the OES 2015 release, codenamed Altair, are native integration of Active Directory users for accessing files on NSS file system. And adding the SMB v2 support. We know we have the SIF stack on OES, but that supports only SMB v1 stack. And so far it was okay, but with Windows 7 adoption picking up and kind of being mandated because of the Windows XP going end of life, SMB v2 importance has gained, and we are, though we didn't have initial plans, we have advanced our plans to deliver that. Also along with it, we are including the support for creating pools and volumes which are greater than 8 terabytes in size. Now there are lots of you who had requested that support. We are hitting the limits. These days 8 terabytes are nothing. So that support is being included. Along with it, the DFS junctions, which people have come to love in terms of maintaining a single namespace for all their pools and volumes spread across various servers. It was always great to have that, but if I have to look up what are all the junctions I have and I have to manage them, there's not an easy way today. So we are going to solve that as well with OES Altair. Apart from that, the regular performance and reliability focus, there'll be a continued focus on those. So when is the timeline we are looking to release OES Altair? Yeah, it's the first half of 2015. Currently we are almost done with the features, but considering the nature of changes that are going in, it's going from right at the bottom to the top of the stack. There's going to be a lot of QA cycles to make sure we don't get anything wrong. We already set some goals and milestones in terms of how the OES quality should be with OES 11 SP1 and SP2, and we don't want to do anything less but build upon that with OES Altair release. So we'll see details on the beta and other customer engagement programs coming out around the BrainShare timeframe. Going to the details of what constitutes this. Now, this diagram essentially shows the file stack of OES and how it is today, right? And compare this with what's coming next, the changes that we are doing. All we are doing is we are allowing Active Directory to become another identity store to access your files on the OES servers. So how are we doing that? We are adding some changes to the stack to categorize that, and we'll look at the details of that in the next slide. So this at a high level is what's being done in the OES Altair release like we just covered. SMB v2 is getting added, greater than 8 terabyte support, along with support for Active Directory users. How are we doing this? So OES server is going to join your Active Directory domain as a member, and the SIFT service on OES is going to be Kerberized, and because of that, any user who logs into their Windows workstation, when they try to map a drive to this OES volume, they get a single sign-on, they get their Kerberos tickets and credentials that is shared with the OES server, and the OES server, by virtue of being part of the Windows AD domain, authenticates, verifies those credentials, and gives you transparent single sign-on access to your volumes. So that's at a very high level on how that is being made possible. Now in doing this, we know there are key traditional strengths of the NSS file system like IRS visibilities and how we manage the ACLs. We know that's way better than in a Microsoft environment. We do not want to lose any of those benefits. So we are preserving the best of the both worlds and just enabling the AD users to experience the benefits of the Novell file system. Now should your organization choose to move your identity stores to Active Directory, earlier there was no choice but to migrate your file systems as well. And that we all know is a very expensive proposition, migrating from a Novell NSS to Microsoft NTFS. So this solution is now going to allow you to retain your files even if you want to move your identities to Active Directory. Again, I'll just not go into the details, but what are we doing with this and how are we doing it? This is going to be a purely an additional add-on capability. You can use OES Altair and its other capabilities without leveraging the AD capability. So this is only for those who need it, but it's there if you want it, and that's the direction your organization is adopting. So it's a native integration. There are no synchronization of users. There is no replication of users. Like I said, services are being Kerberized to make sure single sign-on happens. Retains all the traditional benefits of the Novell rights model. In terms of management, now you're not going to have a Novell client there. The access protocol that's going to be supported is SIFs for file access. But then what happens to my trustee management? My familiar, most often used right-click trustee management, right? So we are exposing those aspects of trustee management as a Windows shell extension. So even though there is no Novell client and you have mapped the drive to an Altair server, you can still right-click, manage your trustees like you've always done with a Novell client in a similar manner, just with the Windows shell extensions that we are providing. Users in this world, yeah, you manage your users however you have been managing them in a traditional Active Directory environment. The storage management, on the other hand, provisioning of pools, volumes, they continue to remain on the Novell tools, which is iManager and NSSMU. Now, the beauty of the solution is taking Novell itself as an example. When the attachment merger happened, traditional Novell was a e-directory shop, attachment is a Windows shop, and when they wanted to have access to the Novell files, we didn't have an easy way to do it. Now, the way the solution has been designed, you go through your acquisitions. If part of your organization is AD and part of your organization is based on e-directory, they can all both have access to the same set of files and file system at the same time. There's not going to be use this or that. The choice is yours. However your business needs dictated, that's how you are going to use it. And in the first release, we are going to enable SIFs. Your DFS junctions are going to continue to work in this mode. DST is going to work. Clustering is going to work, which pretty much ensures if you have huge terabytes of volume and data already existing on a Novell file system, you can start taking advantage of this without doing any changes to your backend infrastructure. They all just continue to work the way they are, just that the AD users start coming in and they start gaining access. So we are also doing this in a way that there's not much impact on your third-party software vendors or software you're using, which is auditing, antivirus, backup, and HSN software. In doing this, we are also introducing another piece called Novell Identity Translator, which is a kind of a LUM kind of piece, but the benefit of this, LUM requires you to manually LUM enable, but novel identity translator kinds of takes away the pain of LUM enabling. Consider it a kind of automatic LUM. So if a user who comes in either from E directory or Active Directory does not already have his Unix profile in terms of UID, GID populated, this is going to automatically generate those IDs for him, removing the pain of administering LUM if that's a pain in your organization today. Okay, so moving on, just another brief slide on SMB version 2, what we are doing. The first is a phased approach. The first release we are delivering all the verb support. We still expect a lot of improvement and less chatter on the network just because of adopting the verb support, because the number of verbs is reducing from about 100 plus verbs in SMBv1 to about 20 odd verbs in SMBv2. And we are also looking at adding some additional security protocol implementations during the negotiation phase. And also this allows for improved scalability in terms of number of connections, number of open files. So all the benefits you will get in the first release itself. We'll continuously improve this. There are other aspects of the spec of SMB2, 2.1 and 3 which we'll continually look at, and what makes sense for our environment, we'll continuously adopt them as we move forward. Switching on to the features of the greater than 8 terabyte support, we are going to be adding the support only for new pools or volumes. Again, I think we just polled with a lot of you over the last year, should we do an upgrade path for moving from existing pools which are less than 8 terabytes to greater than 8 terabytes? But the predominant answer was no. For two reasons: it's not worth the effort, and the consistency and the data integrity that needs to be preserved is a tall order, and there isn't really a business need to get into that situation which expects you to take a backup of all your data that exists today and then convert it into an 8 terabyte pool, and that's a big effort that's involved there. So we thought, grow your data on the newer 8 terabyte pools and stick with what's there in the current volumes and pools as they are. So that's pretty much a very brief run through on what's coming in OES 2015. At this point, I'll probably turn it over to Lothar. Probably we'll do the Q&A finally after Lothar is done.
All right, Madan, do you want to advance?
Yeah. And yeah, just a call out, if you have further questions on how this is being done, you want to have a detailed run through on how we are doing this, make sure to drop a note to us. Thank you. There you go, Lothar.
All right, thanks. So I'm going to cover Filer 1.1 and IPrint 1.1 really quickly. I think you skipped the slide maybe, Madan.
Oh.
Sorry, yeah. So very quickly, Filer, if you have not heard of it, is an appliance that any of you who are OES customers are entitled to as part of your OES maintenance. And what it does is it ties into all of your existing storage that you may have and makes that available through a browser, through a mobile device, and so on, so that you get that cloud-like experience without needing to actually upload all of your files to the cloud. Next slide, Madan. And just very quickly, this is what it looks like on an iPad. Your My Files, that's your home directory on the network. Net folders are all of your map drives on the network. And then you do have the ability to share, and that is the shared with me. So Filer has the ability to proxy rights for other users, so you can share both internally and externally with other users. Next slide. So as Madan said, we are coming out with a new version of Filer, Filer version 1.1 in about 2 weeks' time. And so we've got some sharing improvements. You can now share just a URL with someone to make that easier, so that they don't have to actually go in and create an account and log in. They just click on the link, and that link can have the same expiry dates and so on that the existing shares can have. The web interface has an improved drag and drop capability, so you no longer need to click on add files. You can just drag a file into the browser and the add files will pop up automatically, and your file will begin uploading, or files will begin uploading. You don't have to do that two-click step and do that manually. When you want to download a single file, that's always been very easy, but if there's multiple files, you've had to do that one at a time. You can now click the files you want to download, and Filer will zip those up, and you can download them as a single zip. If you wanted to edit files in Filer, you had to click on View Details and then click on Edit. You can now just access that from the drop-down that is beside the file name. Again, all of these points right now are targeted more towards customers who are already familiar with Filer. If you are not familiar with Filer and would like to know more, again, just feel free to follow up with myself, lwagner@novell.com, and we can schedule something for you to introduce you to that. Public files, when you're sharing files, you can now make them public, just again by the virtue of the fact that it's a URL, and you can see which files are public without needing to log out and then click and enter as guest. There is a button on the UI that now shows you all the files that are made public. For customers who are in healthcare and concerned about privacy and so on, when you're in the web interface, there's now some default actions that you can set. Rather than clicking on the file name and giving customers the option to download it, you can automatically direct them into the HTML preview. We're also coming out with a Windows phone app with this release, so we already have iOS, Android, and BlackBerry 10, and now we'll also support Windows Mobile. And then lastly, there are updates to the desktop app to support things like the link sharing and so on, just to be consistent across the different interfaces. Next slide. On the installation, we now include support for Microsoft SQL Server. So if you don't want to use the supplied MySQL, we can support an external Microsoft SQL database, and there are migration capabilities if you already have something in place and want to move to that new database platform. Multiple NICs, that is also something that is supported out of the box, so we give you the ability to do that and actually get support from Novell. And we also now include a second or an additional disk. We've always had the second disk, the /VA storage, but now you can also add one more where all of the logging information will go. So that makes it easier to maintain the system rather than being worried about running out of disk space and so on. And I'll talk about that one in just a second. And we also now have a silent install, so you have the ability to go in and modify the actual OVF and script it so that during the installation it will actually pre-configure certain options for you automatically, and that works for the upgrade as well. And we have a new version of MySQL. Next slide. So I know I'm going quick, but we're kind of short on time. And then some administration enhancements that are coming out. So improved performance was a big feature or a big focus on this release. We can now dedicate a Filer appliance just for synchronization. You can also do things like disable the web client if you don't want users to be able to use that interface. You can whitelist and blacklist domains for sharing so that they can only share with certain domains. You have some capabilities within the UI to actually manage mobile devices. See what devices a user has, what files are on those devices, wipe those devices, and so on. You can restrict who can share, especially the new links and so on. And if you do run out of disk space, as I mentioned before, you can now expand the storage. We support the full support for Windows DFS, including replication, as well as OES DFS, and we have a central trash management, allowing you to empty everybody's trash and reclaim space. Next slide. Here's the roadmap. Again, we're about 2 weeks away from Filer 1.1, and we have in the first half of 2015 a Filer 1.2 that is planned for that. Next slide. and keep going, iPrint 1.1. So iPrint, much like Filer, is an appliance. It allows you to enable any printer inside of your environment to not only print from your desktops the way they've done, the way iPrint is done traditionally, but also now mobile devices as well as email support. Next slide. And this is what that looks like. You can email a document into iPrint. You can select Open In. We have an app for iOS, Android, and Windows Mobile coming out in this next release. And then you can also just print directly, so we can AirPrint enable any printer inside of your environment. Keep going. And these are the new features coming out. Again, same time frame as the Filer 1.1 within the next 2 weeks. So the install has been simplified, much like the Filer install. We've got on-device rendering now. We've licensed some Stellent viewing technology for inclusion in that to improve the rendering capabilities of documents. So we don't rely on LibreOffice anymore. As well, if you do want external rendering, we also have some better PDF capabilities there that don't require a full license of Adobe Acrobat anymore either. Multi-driver support, so we can support multiple types of renderers. It's not all just PostScript or all PCL. We can actually support which is which. And we have new QR code-based printing. So you can print off a QR code, stick it to the printer. Somebody can walk up and just scan the QR code to print to that particular printer automatically. We've made it easier to manage your printers in terms of adding and renaming. We have support for Mobile Iron as well as Samsung Knox. I mentioned the Windows Mobile pricing, Windows Mobile platform support, and then per printer licensing will also be released with this version of iPrint. Next slide. Here you can see the roadmap. So we're about to release version 1.1 again within the next 2 weeks, and then in the first half of 2015, we do have plans for the next version of iPrint, and you can see some of the features there. Next slide. And as Modern said, for OES as well as iPrint and Filer, there will be a lot of focus on this at BrainShare this year. That's in the first week of November. You can just go to www.brainshare.com or novell.com/brainshare to get information. Hopefully we will see everyone there. And then with that, we'll hand it back over to, I believe, Lanai to go through his portion of the presentation.
Hey, thanks, Lothar. I appreciate it. Looks like we had a couple questions come in as well. So while we're transitioning over to my screen, do you want to go through and answer a couple of those, or would you like me to read some of them?
Yeah, I can take care of that. So we did have some questions around the slides, and I believe the answer is yes, we will make those available. There was some questions around Filer and iPrint and Zen Server. So there are Zen images available. And Modern, I don't know if you know specifically about Zen Server, or if that's kind of it should work.
You know, it should work, and we have tested this with 1.1, and both Filer and iPrint are certified to work with Citrix Zen Server.
Okay, and then the last question is around Access Manager integration with Filer. And I believe we've done some things better there to improve that. Is that correct?
Sorry, Lothar, can you please repeat that?
With Filer integration with NetIQ Access Manager, do you know the answer to that? I think the answer is yes, we've done some work to...
Yeah, I think the answer is yes, but I don't know for sure. I think we can get back on that one.
Okay.
Perfect. Thanks, guys. Definitely appreciate it. So I'm just going to run through a couple of slides quickly as well. I'd like to save the majority of the time for a live demo. I think that's probably more interesting to everybody. But just for anyone who's new to SEP, I'll just kind of go through a quick introductory, just to kind of give an overview of kind of who we are and what we do. So my name is Lanai Bain. I'm Vice President of Business Development with SEP, and we will be joined by James Delmonico, one of our lead engineers here for the live demo portion in a little bit. So I'm sure all of you guys know that there's a lot of options for backup solutions out there. So what makes SEP different? Basically, we offer one solution for an entire enterprise. So what we find is a lot of folks have multiple solutions in place to meet their needs. And so, we've worked with customers in the past who have had, one solution for Linux or something specific for Novell possibly, maybe a different solution for the Windows side of things, possibly something else for virtual machines or databases or something like that. And we've actually worked with companies that have, 8 or 9 solutions in place. And what we're able to do, because we support such a wide range of products, is to go and work with those companies and help them consolidate down to one central management interface console and standardize down to one backup solution that supports their entire environment. The second main thing we focus on is performance. We use multi-streaming technology, and we're able to back up an unlimited number of streams to disk and up to 64 streams to tape. And that's 64 streams per tape drive, so if we had 2 drives, it'd be 128 streams, etc. And then the third main thing that we focus on is reliability. We're originally a German-based company, and so we come from a Unix, Linux background primarily. And so I think just having that reliability and having a robust way of securing data is a cornerstone of how the product was built from the beginning. So being a German-based company, we also have to adhere to German laws, which are a little bit different than in the U.S. and some other places around the world. So in Germany, if we tell another company that we're going to back up their data, our company actually becomes 100% financially responsible for that data. So being in the backup and disaster recovery market has some liability that goes along with that. And so when we give a positive confirmation that data has been backed up, it's going to be there 100% of the time. And the fourth thing on here, it's not necessarily something that we focus on, but I do think it's important, and I do think it's something that is enticing to look at our solution. We come in at about 40% of industry average from a cost standpoint, and have the best ROI of any enterprise solution in the market right now. Just a real quick overview of supported platforms. We can install our main console on Linux, Windows, or Unix. As far as applications go, all the main applications are supported, Exchange, SharePoint, Groupwise, obviously, and we'll talk a little bit about Groupwise 2014 here. Lotus Notes, and then all the main databases, MySQL, MS SQL, Oracle, SAP, etc. On the virtual side of things, we cover all the main hypervisors, so VMware, Citrix, and Hyper-V. We also have support for open source Zen, and then we also offer bare metal recovery for Linux, Windows, and Windows workstations. And everything that we do with all of these, groupware applications, virtual technology, and platforms, everything we do is at a native level. So we communicate directly with the APIs, and we'll get into that, with Novell specific products here in a second. So with Novell, everything goes through the TSAs. With Microsoft, everything goes through VSS. If we're communicating with, you're backing up Oracle, everything goes directly with RMAN. So everything is done at a native level to ensure consistency. As far as performance goes, just getting back to performance a little bit, we basically set things up a little bit differently so that we can leverage the maximum bandwidth that an organization has to work with. So typically backup solutions will back up server 1. When that's finished, they'll move on to server 2 and kind of move down the line. And so what we do is we actually schedule in groups. So we would schedule, in this example, you guys can see now there's 9 servers on the left-hand side. They all have different operating systems. Some could have databases. They may or may not have databases. They could have applications on them, may or may not. It really doesn't make a difference for us. So what we would do is we would create a schedule group, and then we would put all of these servers in that schedule group. And then we could have different schedule groups. We could have one for files. We could have another one for databases. We could have a third one for sys volumes. We could do, a disaster recovery schedule group. And so we can then kick off all of those schedules at the same time. So instead of going from one server to waiting for that to complete and only having one stream of data coming off of that, we could have 2, 3, 4, 5, 10 different streams coming off of each one of these servers. So in this example, we could have 50 streams coming off of these 9 servers, which really enables us to maximize that bandwidth. And we pretty much run our backups at theoretical maximum for bandwidth. So in a 1 gig connection, we expect about 100 to 125 gigs an hour. On a 10 gig, we'd expect about 1.2 terabytes an hour for backup speeds. And obviously, if we have dual 10 gig, then it just goes up linear. So some of our just kind of examples of real-world scenarios of how these things tie in with some of our customers. So when we implemented at Georgetown University, this is just kind of speaking to the reliability. Their previous solution, they had people coming in for overtime. They were scheduling, additional hours of support all the time, trying to, either babysit their backup solution or get it working, or come in on the weekends and fix errors. And so when we installed our solution, they said the time that they spent working on their backups went down by 90%. And they actually said that within the first, I think it was the first like 3 to 6 months, they had saved enough money on overtime that it actually was the full cost of our solution. So their ROI was within 3 to 6 months just based on overtime spent managing backups, or the reduction thereof. So Rutgers University, they increased performance and reliability, so kind of both scenarios. Widener University, their backups, went from about 50 hours down to 8 hours. So again, perfect example of increased performance. And I apologize, this keeps skipping. Trinity International University, again, their backup window decreased by about 80%. And Scripps College, they were using several different solutions and were able to replace those solutions with one SEP solution. So we also offer archiving. It's basically a worm technology to lock files down, so users can't go in and edit, modify, delete data, etc. We have deduplication, and I put generic drivers on here, and what we mean by that is we don't have our own driver configurations or custom drivers that we write ourselves for hardware. We just leverage the operating system drivers, so any type of media that's recognized by an operating system, we're able to back up to. And so that really just gives users the flexibility of, using existing hardware if they want to adopt our solution. It's not a full, rip and replace where you need to not only, switch over to new backup software, but also go out and buy new hardware and get everything, make sure that everything's compatible. We can go into really any environment and back up to any type of existing media that's there. And then looking forward, it really gives an advantage because users can go out and get the latest and greatest SAN if they want to. They can, use whatever new technology they want, and they don't have to call us and, ask if we have a driver for that, or look at our roadmap and see when we're planning on creating that driver. So, we've gotten a lot of positive feedback from customers that have switched over from some of our competitors, and, they just said, hey, last time we wanted to get new hardware, we had to wait, 14 months until it was supported. So it basically just gives users more flexibility, I think. Like I had mentioned before, we do bare metal recovery for Linux, Windows, and Windows workstations, and basically it just creates a bootable image file, and we can restore to similar or dissimilar hardware. And I'm just going to kind of keep moving through these so we can get to the live portion of the demo. We have full support for Citrix Zen Server, VMware, Hyper-V, and open source Zen. All the versions are supported for the last, I would say, 4 or 5 plus years. And as far as Novell products specifically are concerned, like I mentioned, we back up directly through the TSAs. So we have full support for all of the Novell products using direct communication. For eDirectory, we can back up, eDirectory we can do single file or single user restores. We can do single, user permission restores. We also support NSS volumes, and OES is fully supported as a cluster as well. Oh, apologize. And also for Groupwise full support. So we can do full post office restore, individual mailbox, or individual email restore as well. And just kind of as a caveat to that, just the way that Groupwise compresses everything, Groupwise actually goes in and compresses all of the data in there, and that's why it always has such a small footprint. And so to be able to do the actual restore, we can go in and kind of go through a tree structure and select exactly what we want restored. And then on the back end, what that does is restores the entire post office, and it pulls out whatever we asked for. So that the restore is being done of the entire post office, but it pulls out exactly what you're looking for. And one way that we typically, we found a good workaround for that is we'll do a full backup overnight of Groupwise, and then once that backup's complete, we schedule an automatic restore. So it'll automatically restore that post office to a little landing area, so that when you come in the morning, you already have a fully restored Groupwise system sitting there, and so anything that you would need throughout the day, you can just go drag and drop directly out, and there's absolutely no time for the restore whatsoever. So that tends to work really well for folks. And we actually just came out with our new release, SEP version 4.4. So some of the new features in that. First and foremost, we are fully supporting Groupwise 2014. We also have single file restores for NSS volumes that are running in VMware. So we can actually use our agentless solution for VMware and go in and restore individual files from NSS. We also have what we call VMware Instant Recovery. And basically what that is when we do a backup of a virtual machine in VMware, we can separate out that VMDK file. And if we back that up to a share, then if a VM were to go down or something, we can actually just point directly to the copy of that backup of that VMDK file, and we can spin that VM up directly off of that copy. So we don't have to wait for any restores. We don't have to have any downtime. Users can just be instantly back up and running and have that VM active again. And then after that, you can migrate that back to where it was originally or transfer it to somewhere else. It's really up to you. In the current release right now, we have the destination side deduplication. In 4.4, we will have source side deduplication, although that's in the next release, and that's anticipated in a couple weeks to a month, and also replication as well. This version also has full support for SAP HANA, and also, yes, single port network requirements is another new feature. So that is pretty much it. We're going to jump into the live demo portion now. So if anyone has any questions, please submit those. I do see that some questions have been submitted, so we'll run through that real quick as we transition over. And I'm going to make James Delmonico the presenter and turn it over to him. And I'll run through some of these questions here in a second. Okay, so one question, it says, in terms of best practices, is it considered acceptable to run CSIM from a VM right off of a SAN that you are backing up to tape, or is it better to use a standalone physical server for CSIM to reduce the IOPS cost involved with the backup jobs? Best practices is to run that on a physical server. So it is fully supported in a virtual environment, and you can run it you know, in whatever scenario you'd like. And it's not even so much the IOPS concerns that we would be mainly concerned about. It's more just the fact that if your VMware host or, you know, whatever virtual platform you're running it on were to go down, you'd be in a kind of a chicken and egg scenario where you wouldn't have a backup server and you would have lost your virtual machines. So because of that, we definitely recommend putting it on a physical machine. You know, when you have a disaster or something, you know, goes down like that, it's not the time that you're going to want to be rebuilding your backup server as well as a first step to be able to restore data. So we definitely recommend putting that on a physical server. Next question, do you support backups and restore files on NSS volumes that have double byte characters in the file names? And I am not 100% sure about that, to be honest, so I'm going to let James field that question.
Yes, we do support all of the supported namespaces, including long and also NFS. So you can use any file system names that you'd like.
Perfect. Thanks, James. And next question, can you limit your bandwidth per group? And I believe that's referring to the multi-streaming. And the answer is yes. So we can go in and we can set the total number of streams to use so that will limit the bandwidth that we're using. So if you're in a situation where you have a 24/7 operation going and you don't want to maximize and completely flood a LAN or a WAN network, then yes, we can throttle that traffic using the number of streams that we back up. Okay, let's see. There's a couple more here real quick. Oh, actually, that's it. So yeah, I'll go ahead and turn it over to James. And as we go through this, keep the questions coming, guys. Whether it's for Novell or whether it's for SEP, please keep asking questions, and we'll do a little Q&A at the end of the live demo as well. So I will go ahead and turn it over to James.
Okay. This is a fresh install I did today of the production SESM version on new /11 installation. When we do disk storage, we use these data stores, and the data store keeps the partition from being full primarily, and so we can have an unlimited number of data stores, and that's just how we deal with disk storage. We're able to use local storage, RAID, NAS, SAN, network share, any supported file system by the operating system. Everything that you see here is the exact same on Windows, Linux, or Solaris. This is actually the same Java GUI we use for all operating systems. So, you know, you can implement SEP on whatever type of server you want, OS-wise. Media servers can be any OS, and you can still get all the same support. So even if you need a custom server on another operating system, you can still do all of your Novell backups correctly. We fully support all types of different loaders, including all the fiber channel and SAS stuff, and also tape drives. Those come up and configure automatically. The logical units we deal with are here, and we call them media pools. And so the only property of a media pool is the retention time period. So on this pool, if we write data to it, weekly backups, weekly fulls, and daily incrementals, at the start of our second week, we'll have 2 copies of the full on disk. So this is a safe way to store, because we go between 1 and 2 copies of the full. If we're doing daily migration off-site or to tape or something, then we can go between 0 and 1. We're able to have an unlimited number of media pools here with different retention time frames. Commonly, we have weekly, monthly, annual, archival, sometimes even daily. It doesn't matter what host or what host OS the storage is on. It's all just a generic media pool to us. So if it happens to be tape on a Linux media server or disk or RAID on a Windows server, that's all fine. We can back up data from clients to media pools. We can restore data from media pools to clients. We can also migrate data from one media pool to another. When we do that, the new copy takes on the retention period of the target pool, and the original expires naturally. So that's where we get the storage agnostic behavior. When we do our production installations and our customer demos, we create 6 scheduling groups. And the idea there is to help us leverage the multi-stream automatically and give us the ability to control the order in which everything happens. That lets us do things like say, we're going to hit the VMware farm for 5 backups at a time, and we're going to hit all of the physical clients for 1,000 backups at a time, or any type of combination like that. I'm just going to make one group just to show what that looks like, but these are all done in the first time installation. So when we go back through to add clients, then it's trivial because we don't have to go into the schedule. All we do is generate the task, install the agent or agentless client, and put the task in the right group. So to do the first time scheduling, we do something like this, say weekly fulls and daily incrementals to our local test pool. You can do any combination of more complicated scheduling or a more complicated approach there as well if you want. This is our source browser, and this picks up running services on the client. On Linux, we support all of the Novell technology, and we will do that going forward. We also support OpenLDAP, MySQL and Maria, Postgres, additionally if those are there on the system. We do open file backups for everything by default. We have native support for all of the Novell technology. There's a cosmetic thing here where we're not showing that it's Groupwise 14, but it is here, and it's voice supported. So we can see our domain and our post office there. When we look to do NSS volume backup, whether it's local or clustered, if it's clustered, we add a client here in our system for the virtual IP address. But there you can select everything on that volume, or we can pick out certain files. We handle open files on all operating systems by default. That's not a licensed feature. With eDirectory, we can back up the schema. We can back up the full tree. We can restore single object or single leaves from the directory. There's full support here for iFolder as well. If this were a client instance rather than a server instance, we also support bare metal for Linux for custom clients. And that bare metal is really unique because the bare metal backup is very, very small. All we're doing is looking at the disks and the partitioning structure and the UUIDs of the file system and mount points. And so when we do a DR restore, we put the restore CD in the new machine or in a VMware virtual machine. We set the original host name and IP address and network configuration. And then we restore our BSR task. And all that does is goes through, formats all the disks, makes sure they have the same UUIDs, and mounts them for us. And then we restore our latest incremental file system backup. The neat thing about that is, compared to other imaging solutions, we're not backing up the empty space. We're not restoring the empty space. And normally, you'd restore the full image, including the empty space, and then you'd update it to the latest incremental. In our situation, you don't have to do the empty space, and then you can go right to your latest incremental and boot the system. So that can be a big time saver, especially in an emergency. It's also nice that you can use that to do P2V type migrations in an emergency. We do also have support for the legacy NetWare systems. For example, you could back up a Groupwise 7 on NetWare 6, and then you could restore it onto Groupwise 14 on SLES 11. And that's all fully supported. So we handle the case mutations and things like that. So whenever you have a Novell backup with SESM, whether it's from NetWare or OES, you can be confident that you can restore that to a brand new system. For advanced features, we do have the ability to read trustee rights out of the Linux attributes, meaning that if we have a non-clustered environment, we don't need to use the TSAs to access files and get trustee rights. That can lead to huge performance increases, especially on SAN. There's also opportunity to cross-restore. So we could back up a file off of a NetWare machine and restore it to a Windows machine in an emergency or anything like that if we needed to. All of that works the other way. One of the neat things about how we utilize the technology with APIs is that we don't modify the data we get from an API. So in the case of VMware backup, for example, we could back up VMware from the API. We could restore it back to that same server. We could restore it to a different server or a different pool. We could restore it to a fresh installed tool. Or we could dump the files out on a disk on any client or member of the system. And that allows us to use native tools. Also things like Microsoft SQL, we could dump an SQL file. OpenLDAP, we could dump an LDIS file. And so you aren't tied into the APIs just because we pulled the data from an API. This little demo machine is sitting on a desktop-grade Citrix host being served over NFS, so performance is not what we'd expect on a real system here. But I'm going to show you what it looks like to add an agentless client. This would be like what we would do for VMware or Citrix or Hyper-V or something like that. We put in one member of the pool, and we select its operating system from the supported operating systems. Everything is supported here as a client from NetApp filers, Solaris, HPUX, Mac, PSD. So you can back up anything that in your environment. So we select a member of our pool, we put in our API login information, and we select our data mover. This is really neat because this is the initiator. And so if we were trying to back up this Citrix pool and store the data on a remote storage, we have the ability to control routing with this setting. So if I selected the remote media server here, then the connection would go directly from the remote media server to the hypervisor pool directly. If I selected the backup server here, the data would go from the hypervisor pool through the backup server and then out to the media server. So you can control all the routing within the system here. Again, our source browser concept finds anything in the pool. If HA is moving things around in the pool or something like that, we only are calling the VM name or the data center name. So we are able to find the VM even if HA is going on or something like that. So now we've added our agentless client here, Citrix, and we've added our backup task. All that's left to do is put it in a scheduling group. And at this point, we can walk away and know that the backups will be completed on time, leveraging the multi-stream technology. There's some other big advantages from an admin basis to using this system. Here, for example, are our log files. And we have our logs stored here, and the big log files we keep on the file system. So we also use an open SQL database to back our system, meaning that we can do any type of advanced reporting. So if we switch on the GUI logging, let's say I want to know what tape number or drive number was used for a backup, then I can use this as a query builder. So I'm able to actually just cut and paste these SQL queries into the email notification and do advanced reporting. That makes life easier for me. Also, if I want to find out what the back end of the system is doing, I can just go into the day log, and this shows everything. Starting the system, changing a setting in the GUI, checking the license, ejecting a tape, moving something in the loader. And so between those two views, I'm able to see everything that the system's doing down to the command line that the system's running. And all of our command line is self-documenting, so we have the ability to really know what's going on without calling upstream support for every little thing. We use the same build of the software for all customers, so whenever there's a bug fix, we issue a new version to everyone. We also use the same code base for Linux, Unix, and Windows. So all of the behavior, the file names, the internal characteristics are the exact same no matter what OS you're on or what version. That means that you could run into a customer implementation of SEP on Windows. You could pull the config out and load that onto a SLES server instantly without any type of changes. We also do advanced email notifications. We can send SNMP management traps instead or in addition to email notifications if you already have a system that pages you or does something like that. And our 3 types of email notifications are affirmative, just listing all of the tasks that succeeded, or if something failed or if a Windows machine rebooted in the middle of the night, then you get an error immediately from the alarm system, and you get a summary showing what worked and what failed in the morning. There's also something cool, the disaster email, and that sends us a trimmed down copy of the SQL modifications we've done to the system here, and that allows us to restore your SESM system if you lose the backup server instantly. We have a import function here to import the database. And so this gets, it's DR for the SESM systems. You can grab a trial version off the website, 160 megabytes, has everything necessary to work, load the database in 30 seconds, and you're back up and running on a new system. To look at a file backup, I'm just going to make a little example backup here to show you how that would work. Let's say we want our Etsy folder. Okay, so we've made our task. And to start it, we just do a copy level backup. I'm going to do a full level backup, so we're tracking file access dates. There's some really neat things that we do with VMware. For example, if the LUN that's hosting our VMware VMs is zoned read-only to the backup server or to our chosen data mover or initiator, then we'll notice that, and we'll automatically pull the data directly from local SAN. So we can do a true SAN-to-SAN backup or restore with SESM, and we automatically detect that. So you can keep all the data off the network. Here's what the restore wizard looks like. We just select the task we want, select the date range where we lost our file, select an instance of the backup within that range. This is an F full backup. If I were to highlight an incremental or differential backup, SESM would automatically check this generation restore box. And it would give me the tree view of all the files from the base full all the way up through any number of incrementals and differentials and show me everything. If I go and uncheck this box, then I see just the data in that incremental. And SESM is really unique in that we use intact save sets. And so if a file changes, we do an incremental. We pull a whole new copy of the file. So that file is restorable even if the parent tape is already moved off-site or bad or anything like that. So it's a lot safer incremental method than the block-based things that you probably see with other vendors. So there's a search facility here. You can just select your file. I'm just going to select this file. By default, we're restoring the data back to this host it came from, to the path it came from, without overwrite. So if you've moved something off, it's safe to just hit next through this whole procedure. This save option is really neat because SESM allows you to schedule backups and restores. And so, like when I said, you can backup groupwise in the evening and automatically restore it in the early morning. So when you get customer queries or trying to pull emails back, you can just drag them over without waiting for the restore. That's also really nice to eliminate SAN as a single point of failure in virtual environments because we can back up all the virtual machines in the early evening and then restore them automatically in a stopped or running state to a hypervisor with isolated storage. Commonly we do that to another hypervisor with local storage or a separate SAN. So if something goes wrong, we can just switch the VMs on and be back to where we're running. Our source browser allows us to do all the same choices for where we restore files. I'll just select our desktop here. And I'm going to drop the tree structure and just dump the file. So otherwise it would create the SE folder. So that's really an example of using the SESM system for backup and restore. And that works for any environment. At this point, I'd like to open it up for questions. Just anything about how SESM would work in your environment or how it could save you time.
Cool. So we have a couple questions that came in. First question is, if you were to back up an entire VM, can you pull the files from within the VMDKs to restore, or do you restore the VM, then run it in extract? If it is the first scenario, can you show the screens where you can select files from within the VM?
Okay. I don't have a VMware system to show you here, but yes, we do support single files. We have many options with VMware, and commonly we're backing up the entire data store folder as a monolithic piece, like the OVF. We have an option when we make the backup to create the files as separate backups, and that's neat because if you have an NFS storage for your backup storage, you can mount that on your VMware host, and then if you go to do a restore, you can instantly start the VM off of the backup copy. So in real life, that's very practical because you don't have to wait for the restores during a mass failure. The other thing that we can do is we can mount the VM leveraging an NFS server locally and pull single files out of the VMDK. If we do that with a Windows VM for a Windows-based disk or VM, and we use a Linux machine for a Linux-based. So yes, single file restore for VMware, fully supported and works. Also instant restore or standard VMDK restore. Notably, we support the VADP interface for full provision size backups of VMs. We also support the legacy VCB interface for older than 4.1 hypervisors. We also support the CDP interface for the 4.1 and newer. So we can do a full used space backup, which saves a giant amount of space because you're not backing up the empty space. That also allows us to do full incremental and differential-based backups of the VMware system.
Perfect. And we have a couple more questions. I just wanted to let everyone know, I know we're going a little bit over our time now, so if anyone would like to have a trial version or install the software themselves, do a little proof of concept, if you have any follow-up questions or anything, please reach out to us and let us know. We're more than happy to jump on with you and help you get something configured for testing, or just answer any questions that you guys have or point you in the right direction for whatever you're looking for. So we'll go ahead and just finish the Q&A, but I just wanted to throw that out there. You can reach all of us at, probably the easiest thing is info@sepusa.com. Shoot us an email, and we'll also have some contact information towards the end here. Next question is, can you do a backup agentless over SSH or SCP, for example?
Yes. SESM includes its own built-in SSH service that provides AES-256 in flight. We also provide AES-256 at rest by initiating the encryption at the client site. The other thing that helps you with is port forwarding or WAN, because then, we're running the data over an SSH session. When we initially configure our client, it passes the keys, and so no passwords are required.
Perfect. Next question is, can you pull mailboxes from an Exchange server VM?
Yes. With our system, we provide no distinction for virtual or physical, except that with a virtual machine, we're doing a hypervisor level backup. With a physical machine, we're going to recommend an image level backup. So yeah, that's fully supported.
Alrighty, it looks like those are pretty much, I think that's pretty much it. If anyone else has any questions, please go ahead and post those. And I'm just going to go ahead and put up a quick slide here with some contact information. So if you have any questions for either Novell or for SEP, please reach out to us. And I know that Lothar and Madham had their contact information up earlier as well. So we will be posting these slides, I believe, from both presentations. And we'll also have a recording of this available online as well. And again, like Lothar said, I would love to invite everyone to join us all at BrainShare. We'll all be there together, and I think it's a great place to meet up. And yeah, we look forward to seeing you guys all in the future. Thank you very much for your time today. And Lothar, Madham, thank you guys very much for presenting. Is there anything else you guys wanted to add? All right, I will take that as a wrap-up. So again, thanks for joining us. Stay tuned for future webinars. We also have a training coming up in August in Boulder, Colorado. If anyone's interested in attending, please let us know. And we look forward to seeing everyone at BrainShare.